Many people talk about the ups and downs of married life, but no one really prepares you for life after your spouse passes away. Welcome to Widowhood Real Talk with Tina, a safe place for widows, widowers, and their friends and family to talk about love and loss. Find comfort as you listen to honest conversations between Tina and invited guests who've experienced the loss of their forever partner. Share their stories of love, grief, and healing. You are not alone in this journey. Join today's episode and discover a wealth of resources and learn how to connect with others who are traveling the same path. This is Widowhood Real Talk with Tina.
Hello, Cheryl. Welcome to the Widowhood.
Hello, Tina. Thanks for having me.
Really? So when you hear welcome to the Widowhood, what really comes to your mind?
Women that have lost their spouses.
Okay. Thank you. And so you're like, do I fit in? Is this a space for me? And I appreciate the organic and transparency. And for everybody, I am still getting over bronchitis. So I have tea and I am trying not to sound like my fictitious character, which is Marge. This has been smoking 6 packs of cigarettes a day.
Right.
Because when I start coughing bad, that is what it is. But Cheryl and I have had this conversation planned and I'm committed. So be patient and be kind and don't tear me apart in the ratings. And Cheryl, you bring up a good point. So thank you for mentioning that. When we came up with a name for this organization, the term widowhood was to cover the entire community. I'm from Chicago. So hood means family to me.
Right. Yeah.
So I am the widow of origin in this organization, but my children, my family, my friends, when one person passes, that relationship of every other person connected to it, somebody else, like when my husband passed, his parents would have been impacted from his passing. His siblings would have been impacted, his nieces and nephews, even though it was the widow experience, me, but the entire hood was impacted.
Absolutely.
So as we get into your conversation, hopefully that idea of me explaining this is you're in that hood from that perspective of the person that you have lost.
Yes.
But in the same vein, I'm actually going to speak with the board members about considering changing the name or using the DBA, because that, if I have to explain it, that's too much. And I want people to organically feel like they're connected and know that they have a place here. I mean, me explaining that to you hopefully gives a sense of how you do belong in this conversation.
Absolutely.
But different than, but it's like, when you're already grieving, you ain't got time for extra explanation. I need to have known already. So we're looking to change that, but it is intentional to support the hood. And that is all of us that are grieving.
Absolutely.
So thank you for giving me the opportunity to share that with you.
No problem.
So now that you hear the name of it, what do you think when I say welcome to the widowhood?
Well, when you said widow, even if you didn't have the hood, that automatically takes me to somebody that has lost somebody that's grieving.
Yes.
And the hood just includes everybody that's in the midst of the grief. There's a widow, there's a cousin, there's a child, there's a parent, there's a cousin, so the hood just, ties it all in. Like the widow is grieving, but so are we, collectively, we're all grieving.
Exactly. Thank you.
Yeah.
So where are you located physically right now in the world?
Well, right now I'm in Maryland.
Okay.
I just moved from Georgia about 3 months ago. I moved because I wasn't doing too good mentally and physically. I went from a size 14 to a size 2. And, and I think I'm grieving so many different things, not only the loss of my child, but a relationship. And I lost my job 7 days before I lost her. So it's been a lot. And I had no family down there. The guy who I was seeing, he was there. But anyway, I had no family there. And it was just me and my grandkids. And I was crashing. I was walking 20 miles a day, not eating, just so I wouldn't have anxiety and panic. And it was a mess. So yeah, so now I'm in Maryland and I'm healing and I'm at a size 6 now and I've gained some weight and I'm the anxiety isn't as bad, I still have my days, but it's getting better. So
Thank you for sharing that. And I'd like to go back and sort of dive into each one of those things that you mentioned a little bit more. And I am sorry for the passing of your daughter. And your daughter's name, would you share it with us, please?
I'm Stephanie Scruggs.
Stephanie.
Mm.
And when you think of Stephanie, you just started smiling. What are thoughts that when you think of her comes to mind?
Because Stephanie she was so confident. Um, she no matter what she put on, and she one day she came over my mom's house and she had these long locks down to her feet, and she was just in my mom's kitchen and she was, my mom was like, "Girl, if you would sit down and stop swinging that hair," but she was just so confident and. Stephanie, as a child, always she was my neat freak. Like she was very clean and she, hated things out of order. And, when the girls, she had two girls and a boy. And when they would get on her nerve and wouldn't clean up, it would drive her crazy. And but she was hilarious. You almost had to hold on to your seat because you was afraid what she was gonna say. Because she spoke her mind. It's like if you don't want her to say anything, please don't do it around her. Like she was just very outgoing and just a ball of energy. And that was she was my second oldest of 6. Yeah, I had 4 girls and 2 boys, and she was the second oldest. And Stephanie was a character. That's all I can say. And I miss her so, so much.
Wow.
So
The way
much.
you light up. I'm going to ask you something. Do you still speak to Stephanie now?
I do because, there are days when I'm angry with Stephanie. And, you know, because I have custody of her kids now, her 2 girls, my grandson is in North Carolina with his dad. But yes, I'm angry with Stephanie. So, there are days that I'm, okay, and like, Stephanie, I miss you. I finally was able to go visit her gravesite. My granddaughter wanted to go on her birthday, so we went. And it took, my granddaughter had been wanting to go, but I couldn't bring myself to go. And she, and I was like, I can't be selfish because they lost their mom, so this is not only about me, but, I had to, make sure that their needs are met mentally, you know. So we went and it was hard. And it's funny because my granddaughter texted me yesterday from school and was like, can we go? And I want to go see my mom. And I was like, not today, because of traffic. And she got out of school. And when can we go? And I was like, I'll let you know because mentally I have to like get myself together, and because when I go, I feel like I'm leaving her again. And although I know I can't take her with me, I know she's gone, but I feel like on some level I'm letting her down. I know before she died, she was depressed and, she was sad. And, I saw that and she became a different person. So I took the girls and, thinking she would get herself better. But I feel like I also let her down because maybe I should have taken her with me too.
Mm.
So I struggle with, letting her, I feel like I let her down. Like I didn't fight hard enough to get her better because she started using drugs and she became a different person, of course, and she wasn't taking care of girls like she was supposed to. So, I stepped in, but I also feel like I should have just taken her in. I don't know. but it bothers me, and I wrestle, I wrestle with that. So yeah, I talked to Stephanie. I'm like, Stephanie, I'm mad at you today, and then the other days I miss you, and I just, I got many videos, and she loved to sing. I got all those videos, and I listen to them, and some days I smile, and some days I'm just so angry, because yeah, I just miss her. I guess I just miss her. And the last time I saw her was Mother's Day 2023.
Mm.
And I
Thank
relived
you.
that day over and over and over and over because I felt like I should have just took her home with me and did something. But I also know that people that get on drugs, they have to want to get the help. You can do everything under the sun, but until they're ready, then it's just nothing you can do. That's my girl.
Thank you for sharing that. I don't know if you've heard this, but I have that people say you shouldn't be mad at somebody that's not here. But I feel like people that make those statements have not been in a position that they are having true feelings as we're wrestling with our person that is not here. If you were to bump into someone in the laundromat and they have a daughter that passed, and they say that they're mad at her, but they don't feel like they have the right to say it out loud, what would you tell them?
You have every right to say it out loud because you feel how you feel. And I think so many people, because where grief can take you, so many people are afraid to express themselves and speak out loud because they're scared of what family is going to say and what people are going to say. No, you feel how you feel. You're entitled to feel how you feel. And if saying that out loud helps you, then by all means, say it out loud because that's not them. They're not in your shoes. And until somebody is actually there, then please don't tell me how to feel about my child that I've lost, that I carried in my womb for 9 months, that I nurtured and taken care of. Yeah. So
Thank you. For your own experience, did you find it better when you let it out or keeping it in?
I found it better to let it out. I think I got this thing now where I'm healing out loud. And I think for so long, I carried that inner turmoil, so to speak. And I was worried about what the family are think, what people are think, because, mine started with the weight loss. And my granddaughter pointed it out to me that I would let people know, yeah, I'm grieving, I lost the weight, because I didn't want people to, ask me, you lost so much weight. I would say it before, somebody could ask me or somebody could say something about my weight. And now, I don't really care. I'm grieving, I'm getting through something. So, it is what it is. What's happened has happened. And if you don't understand, I make no apologies for how I feel about nothing that I went through. I went through it. And some things I can learn a lesson from. And some things it has strengthened me to become the person that I'm becoming, and that's life. And I also realized that, you know, life is not only life and for Cheryl, but so many other people. And, I always ask God to, I tell him on Facebook, I say, when I get up in the morning, my first prayer is, Lord, don't let me break before my breakthrough, because I recognize the space that I'm in, and I was been suicidal. I've been, not eating for days and weeks at a time and not even recognizing that I, wasn't eating. It just became a way of life for me and my body had adjusted to it. And, it is what it is. And I take it one moment at a time, instead of one day at a time, because sometimes it's those moments, that you gotta get through. Yeah, that's pretty much how, it is what it is.
Thank you. You bring up a point that I actually wanted to ask you about, and you talked about how different family members feel in grieving the same person. And as you mentioned, your daughter that you carried in your womb and for her not to be here. And then at the same time, caring for your grandchildren who have lost their mom and then other family members. How do you manage or navigate the complexity of different people's grief as you're housing your own?
Well, with the girls, I started out us, having dinner together, just sitting at the table, and because they were with their mom a lot, of course. And we would just sit around the table and talk about stories. And, because they always have a story about their mom. And we would just sit around the table and talk about that, talk about the things that their mom did. And, because or the fights that they have seen, and different things, and just the stories, because you got to keep of course that's their mom, and they don't want to have to deal with it alone. And I didn't want them to feel like, because I'm grieving, I lost my child in the space that I'm in, that they can't talk about their mom. So I made that a thing for us to talk about their mom. And my baby granddaughter, Janaya, she just turned 15. She posts her mom every day, to a song or something. And that works for her. And, but there are times when, because, I think last night I told my best friend and my friend Tony that last night was the first time that I've actually went to bed at a normal time and slept all night, because I don't sleep.
Girl,
And
talk about that. The lack of sleep.
yeah, and I do not sleep. And usually I'm up, if I get up, if I go to sleep 6 in the morning, I'm up by 10, 11 o'clock. And then I'm up to, to the next. But last night I slept. But sometimes, I be scrolling on social media, and my granddaughter has this long video and songs to her mom. And she it just takes me to a place, and I breaks down, and I'm no good, and I gotta get up, and I'm just crying, and I'm crying, and I'm crying, and but I know she needs to express what how she feels. And me and her was on FaceTime the other day, and I was helping her with something, and she said, Grandma, look, I found the text that my mom sent me. And it was like the last text her mom sent her before she passed. And, and we just talked about it. And, we laugh about it. And I let her know, like, it's okay, because sometimes she's angry. Her sister, Juju, we call her Juju, she's 17. She doesn't talk about her mom as much. But when she does, it's always, a story, or something her mama did to piss her off that she didn't like. So, I like to give them that space. I did a podcast one time, like my 10th podcast, and I think it's called The In Between. And it was dedicated to siblings that have lost, and because my girls, my boys don't say much about their sister, but my girls, they post. And if Stephanie was here, because they were, it was always together. They like stair steps. I think the oldest and Stephanie were born 11 months apart. Danielle and January, and Stephanie in December of 88. Like, they're like in the same year. All my kids are stair steps. And they were always together. You seen one, you seen the other, you're gonna fight this one, you're gonna have to fight all of them, type thing. And I've realized that when mothers are grieving, or people lose children, when people sending out condolences, of course, I don't think people think too much about the siblings and the grandparents, and like you said, the hood, it's the children, the siblings, and and the great grandparents, because my mom is still here, and they got aunts and uncles and 2,000 cousins. So, it's important that, you kind of, I try to check on everybody, and I noticed that I went so deep into my depression and despair that, I kind of got away from that. And one of my daughters said one time, she was like, we lost her too. And it just made me think, like, yeah, I've been so consumed with my own grief that I haven't taken the time to check on her siblings to make sure that they're okay. And I think, and I felt bad about that, because sometimes grief can, I never knew that grief could take me to this space.
I would like to share a story with you that I can relate to that. And thank you for sharing that. When my husband passed, we were on vacation together, and he had a massive heart attack in our hotel room. And I was understandably shooken in a way that I never knew grief could take you to a place like that. My son was already in the military, and my daughter was leaving to go to the military a few months after her dad's service. And it had been about 3 months after Mark passed, and I was looking at the text thread between my children and I, and it was silent because I was so gone. And so trying to fight for my life and try to understand a world where he no longer existed. And even though in my head I knew they lost their father, I didn't have anything to give them because I was struggling myself. And about 6 months after he passed, we got together for Christmas. I was able to see them, and I apologized that I was in my own space, in my own grief, in my own devastation in life. I didn't have anything to give anybody else.
Right.
And I wish that I did, because like your daughter said, not only did they lose their father, for those 6 months, they lost their mom too, because I was not showing up in life in the way in which they were accustomed to me showing up. But at the same time, life is different than what it was. And I can't show up because I'm not who I was then when their dad was here. And even though you have your other children, I would dare guess Stephanie's absence from this reality, this world we're in, has impacted how you live life and who you are as a person.
Yes, very much so. I and I had me and my husband at the time, we had our 4 girls and 2 boys, and you know and we having a adopted daughter, and she was my oldest daughter's friend in high school, and she just became part of the family, and we love her dearly, and we have 17 grandkids and a great grandchild, and you know we've been divorced 10 years, but my take on life was, okay, I've raised my kids, and my oldest granddaughter has lived with me, and she's gone off to college, and God is blessed. Now she's a nurse, she's working in a hospital. And my thought process was, okay, I'm finally going to live my life. I'm finally going to, take care of Cheryl and do something for Cheryl. And that didn't happen. Stephanie died. Before she died, I took the grandkids because, I wouldn't have felt good, me trying to live a good life and they're struggling because their mom is struggling. And, at one point I felt kind of selfish because, it wasn't anything that I wanted to do. So in my head, my thought process was, I'm going to take the kids, Stephanie gets better, and then she can have the kids back. That didn't happen. And so I felt myself, okay, here I go again. And during the process of getting funeral arrangements together, and in my head, I was like, I got the kids for good, because The kids didn't want to be with anybody but me. And I was like, Jesus, this is not what I want to do. I want to take care of me because I don't know what it is to live alone or be alone or to just take care of Cheryl. So because actually I'm having to learn how to take care of me in the midst of everything that's going on. Because if I'm honest, I don't know how to take care of me. I've taken care of others so long and making sure everybody was good. And all of this, the depression and the weight loss and everything that I've been through has made me realize that you've taken care of everybody else and not yourself. And look where you are. So I feel, a part of me, kind of feel selfish because I do want to just take care of me, but I also know that my granddaughters need me too. And of course, I'm not going away. I'm there for the long haul because that's just who I am. And in the midst of my mental decline, I went to church and my pastor was like, I know you don't want to hear this, but God told me to tell you the girls belong with you. And if you take care of them, he's going to take care of you. And I'm like, oh, really, God? Because my mental health ain't the best. And you asking me to do this, and like I'm a mess and I can't do this. And, I don't have a job. And actually, I still don't have a job. And, that's depressing. And I'm like, God, you said that if I do, you was going to do. And I'm learning to understand God also on a whole other level. And, it's teaching me trust, not only in God, but in mankind again, so it's been, this has been a journey that wouldn't wish upon anybody. And, I lost my dad and, my aunt just passed not too long ago. And people, I've lost people along the way, but I've never experienced grief like this. And I say I survived the loss, but the grief, that's a whole nother, that's a whole nother state. And I can't even explain the inner turmoil that, I feel. And I guess because not only was I experiencing the loss of her, my relationship, I lost my job. Then 7 days later, I get the call that her dad called me and said, yeah, I just got the call and she did. She's gone. And I was home by myself and I was like, did he just say she gone? And for weeks I couldn't sleep because I kept replaying that over and over and over and over in my head. And I'm like, I don't know. It's something that I can't describe to anyone. It's harsh.
You mentioned, and I would agree, I resonate with the word inner turmoil. And you also mentioned about when your daughter and your granddaughter and her posting and the breaking down. Were you afraid to break down the first time, like you may have lost yourself there? And
I think originally I went into, because when we got the phone call, they were in North Carolina with their granddad for the summer. And my sons went and got them from over my daughter's house. I was on FaceTime and their granddad was trying to tell them, but he couldn't. He broke down. So I had to be the one to tell them. So I think, I was home alone and then my sisters came and my best friend came. But when the girls got home, I went into grandma mode. I put all my emotions and feelings to the side because I got to make sure these girls are okay. I can't let fall and crumble. And I didn't realize that I wasn't grieving because I was just hell bent on making sure that the girls are okay without thought for myself. Like, I figured, I'll be okay. And of course, my mom, she was checking on me and like, I'm okay. And my sister stayed with me for a while. And, I remember breaking down a few times, but I'm like, after the girls get here, I just gotta be strong, Grandma Cheryl, and just get through this. And I didn't realize that, in hindsight, I wish I would have just, whatever, let's all grieve together, no matter what that looks like. And I didn't do that because I just, I didn't want them to see me fall apart. And actually, I hate to say it, but they saw me fall apart in the worst way because I was depressed and they saw the weight just fall off me in no time. And it got worse as it progressed, but they stuck by me, and and the girls, they teenagers, of course, they drive you crazy, but have they have stuck in there, and no matter what, they're like, Grandma, we just want to be with you. And I'm like, okay, I get it. And I love them to death. And like I said, they teenagers. I've been there, done that before. So, but I just, yeah, in hindsight, I wouldn't have, just make sure they're okay. People making sure I'm okay, and I'm telling them I'm okay. So, the girls would see I'm okay. So, yeah.
It is interesting. I'm going to say from the community in which we are in,
Mhm.
that language that is inherently built into us about putting on this strong persona, even when we are falling apart and not being given permission to not be okay.
I think for most people, it's about image. When I post on my Facebook page, I'm very transparent because, I one thing I realize is that, where I'm at in my life, my mental journey, rebuilding, I'm like, God can't bless for one who I pretend to be. And two, I did a podcast last week called A Surrendered Yes. And I realized that, okay, God had required some things of me. And I said, okay, God, I'm going to do this thing. And then I realized that I had given God part of it, but I didn't give him all of it. I surrendered, but I hadn't given him that full yes, because, I tell them often that I am the person that I'm going to figure it out. And and I know that the space in my life, God is just saying, Cheryl, just trust me. You've been trying to figure it out and it hasn't worked too well. So, I mean, can you just give it to me? And, I went through, I lost my car recently because I don't have a job. God blessed me to get my car back. Thank the Lord. But I, you know, I, I'm I have been, I posted a picture on Facebook. This is me now, and this is me the day of my daughter's funeral. I had body for days, and I was barely living on this side. And since then, I've been very transparent. I'm like, it is what it is. I'm going to live hell out loud. I'm going to live my truth. This is what happened. And this is what is happening. Today, I didn't feel like living. I feel suicidal. I don't want to be here. I'm hurting from the relationship. I love this man and he did me dirty. And there are days that, you know, I still love this man. And do I want God to fix it? Absolutely. But that's up to God. And, I make no apologies for how I feel. It's how I feel. And, y'all, I lost my car today. Yes, I'm not in a good mood today. Y'all, today is not a good day. I'm feeling like this. I'm feeling like that. And it's crazy because the more transparent I am, the more other people are being healed by my story. And my pastor told me Sunday, he said, your healing is going to come from your story of healing other people. And I'm saying to myself, Lord, I've personally, Lord, I don't want a story. I just, I said, Lord, I don't want a story. I want to be whole, and I want to be, you know, I miss I put a bunch of pictures. I put like 19 pictures on Facebook the other day of me when I was smiling and I had the weight and I was on vacations and I said, I miss her. But my caption was, I miss her, but I wonder how much of her was unhealed before the death of my daughter. How much of me in those pictures where I'm smiling and I'm on vacation with this man I love and I'm out with my friends, how much of me was really unhealed? And I told them, I said, I'm glad that I recognize the parts of me that got me where I'm at. I can take accountability for, you know, some places that I'm at in my life. Cause I'm realizing when God say, let go, let go. He's saying it for a reason. And, because we human, we want love and we want what we want. We tend to, ignore what God says. And that's me. He was saying, let go of the relationship, trust me, and I was like, but God, can you, so, trying to manipulate God, do my own thing. And that was me. And God was saying, if you just let me do what I need to do. And then I just kept on my way. And God said, since you can't, let me take care of this for you. And did it hurt? And yeah, it hurt. But now I can sit and I can understand, as far as the relationship and stuff go, why God has taken me down this path that I've been on. And I can appreciate it, because of the person that God is making me. It doesn't feel good, but I know it's going to work for my good. And I've had to learn some harsh lessons. And it just unfortunate that it all happened, at the same time,
That perfect storm. And
Yes.
I thank you for mentioning that again, because even though we both know grief can obviously be a result of a loved one passing, there are other things that we grieve in this life. And I want to share this. So you lost a job, you lost a relationship that you thought that this was going to be the man that you would spend your life with. You lost your identity in that relationship, in the job, and a sense of financial security. And then Stephanie passes. And I feel like back to that tough, we can handle it. I can handle the dude. He ain't going to be here no more. I can find me another job. And we learn how to kind of cascade through that. But the pendulum stops when a loved one close to us dies. And
Yes.
all the other things we were sort of able to hold up and do, it all comes crashing down. So I wonder if the people in our community or the people that are around us really understand the rippling effect of all the things that we are grieving. And they're thinking and I don't say this lightly, it's not just that person, it's everything on top of it. So as your children may say, Mom, I'm right here. I know Stephanie's gone, but see me. But the weight of everything else has just spiraled out. And I can see how that created the onset of all that. Did you have you talked about mental well-being. Has therapy been a part of your healing journey, or mental wellness? What does that look like for you?
I haven't, I've talked to a few people, but I was in therapy like right before, like for like 7 months, 6 months before Stephanie died. I was in therapy already. Um, and then of course I lost my job, so I lost my insurance. And then I was just winging it. I got my prayer partner at church, and, God has placed her in my life, and, God has given her wisdom beyond her years. And, it's been helpful. And, my best friend, and my mom, I thank God for my mom, but I haven't, I've talked to the suicide hotline more often than not. And, they call and check on, and, and I promised myself I was going to, get into some therapy, and that's what I've been working on. I haven't been as diligent as I should be and working on getting into therapy, but, you know, I, I, when I felt myself like really slipping, that's when I created the podcast and I wrote the book, and, to keep me, going. And I got like, I know I have at least 15 journals, and they would be laying around everywhere in the car. So when, the mind started going, I could write, and my notes in my phone is packed, to just to, release that, whatever I was feeling, because the anxiety and the panic attacks it was horrible. But, this is one promise that I made to myself, and I told God that, you know, after the demise, the breakup of the relationship, I told God, I said, I'm not going to seek out anybody else. I'm not going to try to get under nobody to get over somebody to, and I said, I'm not going to, God gave me a tribe. I got a tribe, 10 of my friends. And, when I moved back, they take me out every now and then, make sure I eat and, try to, lift my spirits. And I'm blessed because they understand, whatever state I'm in. They say get you some friends that can understand you in all seasons, the broke seasons, the sad season, the hurt. And God has really given me my people. And, but I told God that I didn't want to go out all the time and find a man. And, I I I'm committed to my healing. And I told God that this is what I'm going to do, no matter how much it hurt, no matter what it takes. And, is it easy? It's not easy. My daughter said to me one day, I said, I'm not going to talk to anybody for, I need some space. And I think, she was upset because, like you said, they need you too. And I don't think I was able to be that mother to them. And she said, this grief isn't all about Stephanie. And I was upset because, like, I never said that the grief was all about Stephanie. I know that I'm grieving the job, the loss of relationship, the someone I love, and my daughter. And I don't think they understand that everything just came all at the same time. And when Stephanie died, I think I knew about some things happening in the relationship, and that's when I should have let him go. But I loved him and I didn't want to lose somebody else. So I decided to hang on and fight and fight and fight. And God was saying, let go, Cheryl. Let me fix it for you. And at that point, we don't talk about when we're angry at God and why
Oh, it was on my list, but go ahead. You can jump into it. It was, go ahead.
You saying let go of the relationship and let you fix it, but you didn't fix my daughter. My daughter died. So, and I didn't understand, why God wouldn't give her another chance, just, fix her. Like, yeah, I didn't understand that. And I went to church and my pastor said, I know you don't want to hear this, but, God has given her a rest. You don't know what she was going on, having, dealing with out in them streets. And you don't have to worry about anymore where she's at, what she's doing. And, I had two other daughters that were on drugs. And I thank God that God, like, he delivered them. They're working, they're doing good. And, God has blessed them. And, I was telling my oldest daughter, I say, I don't think y'all understand the post-traumatic stress that you guys put on me, because I was here in Maryland. Their dad lives in North Carolina, but I was going out looking for them. And, I was always afraid that I was going to get that call. In Baltimore, I was living in Frederick, but they was living in Baltimore. And Baltimore has so many abandoned houses. And a lot of times they find bodies in them. And sometimes by the time they get to them, you can't even identify them. And that was in the back of my head that I was going to, they would come up missing and we would never know where they were. And when Stephanie died, I did tell God, thank you, because, she was in the open space where somebody could have called the ambulance. And we knew where she was, and so many people deal with, losing a child and never, or loved ones, period, and never being able to have a body to bury, or, they live with that for years. And, God did that for us. She died on the street in Baltimore, and somebody called the ambulance and they took her to the doctor. They resuscitated her at the hospital. She went into cardiac arrest, and the second time they couldn't bring her back. And, then they say we didn't have to come and identify the body. So I didn't believe she was gone, because nobody came to identify the body. My mom had, by the time I got in touch with my mom, she was like, I'm gonna go down there. But they told her that she didn't have to identify the body because Stephanie had been there a few times and they knew who she was. But I still didn't believe it, because they said I sat outside the church on Sunday when I was waiting for her, because nobody identified the body. So, I'm not believing that she's really gone. And my mom was like, Cheryl, she's gone. So, it's a lot. It's a whole lot. And I wouldn't wish that on my worst enemy, because yeah, I'm some days I'll be like, I'm surviving, but I'm barely, surviving. But it's better now. Like I said, I done started gaining my weight back. And I talk to myself out loud. And if I feel a moment that I need to be transparent, with on Facebook or something, I do. And I know God is working. He's doing it in his own timing, because anything fast don't last. And and I just wanted God to take the pain away. And we as human beings, I know God to just take the hurt away from the relationship. I go back into some other foolishness. So I want to be whole. I want to be like really, really healed. And, because I have things I want to do. And I get God saying, I'm going to do those things for you, Cheryl. But if I do them for you now in the state you're in, you'll lose everything. You're not going to survive. It's not going to survive. You want to do this, you want to do that, but you can't do it in your state of mind. So, like I said, I'm committed to my healing. And I know it's some things that I need to, like, be honest with and face. And so God can do his best work, his big one with me, as I call it. And I told my best friend, I say, child, at my big age, I said, I done cried on my mama lap more often than not, because when you're young, like, I can't wait to get out of here. I want to do
Girl, was that not who thought that?
Yes.
What was we rushing for?
Right. And I got married at 16. So, so I've been gone from my mom a long time, but I like during this period of my life. And, I knew that I had to get myself together, because my mom is a praying woman, and we've been in church all our lives. And one day we were on the phone and she said, I don't know what else to do. she said, this grief is going to kill you.
Mm.
And I knew at that moment that I didn't want to see my mother sad.
Okay.
And I was like, I got to get myself together. But I soon learned that for the grandkids, my mother, the children, no, I got to get myself together. I got to do this for me, because doing it for them, I think all my life I've done everything for everybody else. Doing this for me is going to make it last.
Mm.
I can't do it for the grandkids, because I figured if I do it for me, everything else will fall into place. That'll be, but first I gotta, do it for me, be selfish and just love on me a little bit, whatever that looks like. And like I said, I don't even know what it is to like take care of myself, but I'm learning. So,
I think that is beautiful. I have a few more questions if that's possible.
No problem. No problem.
In being on this side today, this moment of suicide versus where you were in the moment where you felt like you wanted to take your life. Oftentimes, when I talk to people that are in your situation, in that moment, it felt like there was no hope. In that moment, it felt like this was the only thing to stop the pain. But would you say you give it 24 hours and 48 hours and get outside of your head, there is hope? And if somebody's wrestling right now with thinking, I want to stop the pain and I don't want to be here anymore, from your own experience, what would you share with them as far as how that changes?
I think in the beginning, when I was like very suicidal, because I think the hurt just kept coming. Like it was just there, and there was nothing that I could do to make the pain go away. And in my head, only way I can make the pain go away is not be here. So, and nothing was going right. Like nothing was going right. Like I still couldn't get a job and all these interviews, and it was frustrating in a relationship. And then I still didn't have my daughters, and I'm paying bills with no job. And it was just, I can't really describe, the way I felt. I just knew that, like, if God don't come and do something today, then I'm not going to make it. But that's how I always felt when I felt like I was suicidal. One day when I was living in Georgia, I was walking. To this day, I walked and I walked and I walked like 20 miles back and forth. And I felt it so strong on me that today was going to be that day. And it was scary. And I was walking, it was like, you know, because you don't want to die. Like you really honestly don't want to die. You want to live, but you want things to get better. And things just don't get better overnight. There's a process. And I was walking and I was crying and I was talking to God. And in that moment, I called my aunt and I was like, and she just heard it in my voice, and she was driving her, my uncle, and she pulled over and she began to pray. And I could feel God just lifting that off of me. And it was so, it was so surreal in that moment. And I just went home, finally got back to the house. If I walked myself to death, mind you, I was paper thin. I couldn't even eat. I think the best I could do was drink something. And I remember coming home and my sister, my baby sister, she was like, she didn't want to say it to me then. And she was like, "Are you sick?" She said, "Because I saw you and I was about to cry." And people saw the me that was, not physically sick, but, mentally sick, and the weight loss, it was horrible because you're used to somebody being thick and then made this little wafer and you can see my collarbone, and it was a mess. But now, I've had those feelings, but they haven't been strong. And, I just keep reminding myself, like, there is hope. You know, things that don't look the way Cheryl wants them to look. They're looking the way that God needs them to look so he can finish what he started. We have this, when we're going through healing, we have this idea of how things shall look and how you want them to look. And I've realized that the way that Cheryl wants them to look is temporary. It's a quick fix. And I've also started learning to see with my spiritual eye as opposed to my natural eye, because your natural eye tells you nothing is getting better. You've lost your relationship. You don't have no job right now. Nothing's going the way you want it to go. But your spiritual eye said, as long as there's a God, you're going to be okay. Allow God to fix it. Allow God to do what he needs to do. Take your hands off of it. And I have a big problem with trusting. So, it's been hard for me. And it's crazy because if you can't trust nobody, you should be able to trust God, right? But I've had issues. I've had with just, I get on my knees and pray, God, can you please do this, and get right up and get on my computer and try to figure it out. So I think, God has left me in a space where it's funny because I can't figure nothing out. I can't, finagle nothing. I can't do anything, and my suicidal thoughts then and now, is completely different. I can snap out of it a little quicker now. Like, it's okay. I know it's the enemy because my mom always told me the mind is the devil's battleground. If he can get to your mind, then he got you. So, and I can recognize that, yeah, you're not going to get me off my square. I don't feel good, but it's working for my good. And I used to tell my granddaughter that God never brings you through the flood to leave you in the puddle. So I remind myself that, although I'm hurting, I'm in a puddle right now. God has brought me through the flood. And on the other side of the flood, it might be some little puddles, but there lies your victory. So when the suicidal thoughts come now, I understand that the enemy doesn't know my future. He only knows my past. And because he doesn't know my future, he's going to do whatever he can to take me out the game or to get me to give up, because he knows that there's something that God has for me down the line. And his job is to keep me from getting to that, so the suicidal thoughts, maybe January to September, is a big difference. I'm trusting God a little more, and I'm taking my hands off of stuff, like just let go and just let God, and letting people help me a little more, because I don't like to ask people for help. My mom, she had me laughing one day and she said, "You need gas money, don't you?" And I didn't say nothing. And she said, "Do you need gas money?" And I was like, and then I said, "Yeah." She said, "That killed you, didn't you? You almost died." Because it did. I'm like, okay, I should be helping my mom, and my mom is helping me. And, it's all in, because, yeah. And it was so funny, now that, and I still don't ask, I hate to ask anybody for anything, but, sometimes you have to ask for help, and that's okay.
And so that brings me actually to my next question. The strong persona and people seeing Cheryl always standing up and being strong. What are some things that they're not seeing and knowing about you?
This whole side of me, you know, I think that, I got married when I was 16. We was married for 27 years, 4 girls, 2 boys. And I remember talking to one of my friends on Facebook, my longtime friends on Facebook. I've been divorced for 10 years, and most people did not know that we were divorced, you know? And he's like, oh my God, we were just so used to you guys. And, because we all came up in church together, and, and a lot of people, didn't know we were divorced. And not that I was, you know, hiding anything, because it wasn't anything to hide. But I think that, I just kind of let people believe what they wanted to believe, or see what they wanted to see, and actually after my divorce, I got off Facebook for a long time. And I think, this whole ordeal with the loss of my child has made me vulnerable, has made me not care, so to speak, what people think. I suffered a loss. And, don't no matter what kind of loss it is. And I think, especially in the Black community, a lot of us are afraid to express the mental, depression, and worried about what people are going to think if, you think I'm crazy. And I've come to the point where I don't care, because it's a cry out for help on some level, and if people don't know that you need the help or something wrong, they're going to assume that you, the strong person that you've always been, there's nothing wrong, and she can handle it, and she can go on. And when you just let down that guard and take off that facade, God will send people that will hold you up when you are falling. And I think God has done that for me. He's gave me, my people, my village. And, I think, within the relationship and other things, and, when things happen with the relationship, I didn't hold a grudge. I forgave right then and there, because I forgive easily. And I don't hold grudges, because I don't have the mental capacity. I don't have time for it. So, and I think I just, want me to be, not just a person that, is strong, but I want you to know that there's a part of me that, yeah, I'm suicidal. Yeah, I'm depressed. The things ain't going right. And yes, I look good in this dress, but inside I'm a basket case, so to speak. And if you love me, like really love me, I had to ask God, I don't want my situation to change who I am, but give me wisdom and discernment to know who I can trust and who I can't trust, who is to be in my life and who is to not be in my life. I did want to do that because, I think because of my giving nature and stuff, I have been taken advantage of. I will admit that, but it's never changed who I was, though, because I didn't want to change it. You see people, and people are who they are. And if you're honest, they got their issues too. They just,
Girl, who
don't
don't?
say it. So, I just, yeah, the suicide then and now is completely different. I can recognize in that moment when I'm having a moment, call my best friend or call my prayer partner, or talk to my mom or something, and, come right on out of it, because I recognize, like my mama said, you recognize the enemy for who he is and what he is, and you can, take you to a better space. Because in the beginning, ain't nothing working, ain't nothing happening, and you ain't gonna make it, and you got all these plans, ain't nothing gonna happen. And so it does, close in on you, and you be like, I'm gonna check up out of here. And a lot of people do, because they don't have people that they can talk to either. And if they do, they don't want to be judged for being in a bad space. And that's what happened a lot of times. People, they in a bad space, and family judge them, co-workers judge them, and they feel like they don't have an outlet. So, yeah.
Thank you. Thank you so much. I think I have two more questions.
Okay.
In that same vein of not wanting to be judged, there's a thing called disenfranchised grief, where the thing that doesn't always look good in society and the way in which your daughter left this world. Do you ever feel like people are giving you not the space to grieve because how she left this world, or make you feel some kind of way about that?
No, I finally um, was able to voice that maybe about a month ago. Um, I said that I was on Facebook. I said that, today is not a good day. Stephanie, I posted a picture of her and I finally told them, I say, Stephanie died of a drug overdose. And, and because I struggle with not being able to save her. So, my prayer was, God, if I come to this space again, give me what I can do to save my child or to help save somebody else's child. And the whole time, whether she was on drugs the whole time and she came to the church and my church family just embraced her. I never felt ashamed or embarrassed about her being on drugs because being ashamed or embarrassed will not get her the help she needed. And I didn't have time, I got her kids. I got to get her better, you know, and it is what it is. And I'm not the only parent and that got kids on drugs. It's a whole lot of people out there. And I just became vocal about it, and people, my Facebook friends and family responded, it's not your fault. And I hear what they're saying. And the big part of me know it's not my fault, but as her mom, I will always feel like I wish I would have done more. Or what could I have done? Yes, to this day, I replay that like, God, give me something, give me anything, to not only help my child, but somebody else's child, you know. And yeah, I can be vocal about it. I feel no shame because drugs is everywhere. And so many people are dying from it and we don't want to say nothing. We worry about the stigma. And I care about none of that. you know Actually, I want to eventually open up the Stephanie House, and for mothers that don't have a stable environment for their kids, and because I think Stephanie was dealing with some things, and it put a lot of pressure on her, and she had kids, and it just led her down this road. So if I can keep somebody else's daughter from even remotely going to think about that, I want you to know that you have a safe space and there's an outlet, for your healing. And I just, no shame, because, I've realized that my story, all of it is not about Cheryl. My story is here because I have to save somebody else. I got to help somebody, and I know that my healing involves me making others whole. Even
Mm.
even the parts of me that are broken right now. And I had a lady that reached out to me on TikTok. She said I was going to kill myself today, but because of your TikTok, your story, she said I have a will to live. And I talk to her like every day, and people are sending me messages saying how my transparency is healing them. So I know that although what I'm going through has been harsh and it hurts, it's going to be something great that's coming out of this. And the guys, what I always tell, I say, I'm destined for greatness. I've always known it. I've always known that I'm destined for greatness. but I've also known that God has to clean some things up in Cheryl to get me to where he needs me to be. And now I'm at that point where, okay, God, I surrender. Yes, I surrender. It don't feel good, but and I don't even always understand it because, me trying to understand and make sense of everything is not me totally trusting God. Because I'm like, go, I'm trying to make sense of why they did me like this and why this is happening and why this. And God's saying, girl, I don't need you to make sense of it. Just trust me. And, I learned that you're not trusting God if you're trying to figure it out. So yeah, and I don't try to be like boastful, but like, yeah, I'm destined for greatness. I've always known it, but I didn't realize how much, God had to clean up to get what I'm about to walk into to be a lasting thing.
Mm.
So it's been a journey, but I thank God for my journey. It
Amen.
not
When
a journey
you,
that I wanted to go.
where can people find you on social media and under what name?
On Facebook, it's just my regular name, Cheryl Scruggs. And on TikTok and Instagram is surviving_grief8.
Okay. And
And I'm
those will be, and you've sent that to me to be able to have that in the notes.
yes,
Okay.
and I was trying, my book was an ebook at first, right? And it got published the 17th as a paperback.
Okay. And I wanted to, and that was my final question. In your journey and in helping, how, and in your own healing, your book, Surviving Grief, and also your podcasting. What is your podcast name and where can people find that?
My podcast is on everything: Apple Music, Spotify, RSS. It's on all the platforms. I got
And what
my
is it called?
Surviving Grief. See
Okay.
Marie, Surviving Grief.
Okay. And how often does it come out?
Every Wednesday. Every
Okay.
Wednesday. Yeah.
And in that process, and we've talked a lot. I thought I was going to talk about the book sooner, but I didn't. I mean, but I want you to know there's a lot of highlights and a lot of questions and stuff that I had in here. But I'll ask this one thing.
Mm-hmm.
I know that moving forward isn't easy, but I also know that it's possible. What comes to mind when you hear that now?
I can do all things through Christ which strengthens me.
And what does that look like in the idea of your faith and sometimes not trusting God because Stephanie did die and trying to trust God in the living?
It looks like a lot of crying, a lot of, asking God questions that I'm never going to get the answers to. Because, it's simply, at this point, it's simply like, Cheryl, you have nothing else. You just got to trust me. And I don't see the good in what happened now, but after God is finished, I will understand it. So yeah, yeah, it is I'll say this, the healing hurts worse than the wound, to sum it up, because I think I've cried more during the healing because, again, we want things our way. And like, God, if you just fix it my way, then I won't have to go through this and I'll be happy and I can have the person I love. And, this can be that and I'll be okay. But, it just doesn't work like that because everything that we do is temporary. And I've learned to, instead of doing what Cheryl wants to do and asking God to bless her, I now invite God into whatever I'm doing and ask him, is this his will? Ask him to bless it, not after I've done all I wanted to do with it, but, inviting God in the beginning and not, in the middle when it doesn't go quite like you want it to go. So yeah, I tell them on my podcast, I say, I some days I cry more than I pray. And that's the reality of it. Ain't no sugarcoating it. It is what it is. But I'm learning. I've learned a lot about myself, and I've learned how resilient that I am. And, and I got a will to live, and I'm
Mm,
committed to my healing, you know, no matter what come. I'm a make it. I'm a make it.
I believe you.
Yeah.
Thank you for allowing me to share your journey and to be on this podcast. Thank you for entrusting me to have an open discussion without questions in advance and just to let it flow.
Thank you.
Was there anything you wanted to cover when you thought about this conversation that we did not talk about?
No, everything was covered.
Okay.
I just, that I see death differently now, not just, just in general, because death is final. And, the loss of a child is
It's
something
different.
else. Yeah. And
Any questions you have of me?
yeah, when you were actually there when your husband passed.
I was there when he had the heart attack and the emergency people came. He passed in the hospital. I wasn't
Okay.
there at that moment, but the onset of his heart attack. And he may have actually passed, but they had to revive him. But the
Okay.
finale, the final moment, I was not there when he took his
Okay.
last breath, but the heart attack happened and we were there together.
Okay. Because I couldn't imagine, trying to, being there when Stephanie, you know, passed, and or the start of it, even the start of it. I don't think I think you're holding up amazing.
Okay, let's be clear. 7 years later, immediately seeing of the therapist immediately.
Hmm.
Before I viewed Mark's body, I started seeing a therapist once a week and sometimes twice a week. When you and so my version of being committed to my healing
Hmm.
looked like I cannot get stuck here. If I don't understand how to navigate this, I will be stuck at this place of devastation forever.
Yeah.
And one of the initial conversations was with my daughter. This is the night her dad passes. And I'm getting out the shower, and Catherine is standing right there. And I'm like, whoa. And she says, Mom, was dad your everything? And I looked at her, and she had this Disney wanting look on her face. But words mean something to me. And I told Catherine, no, your dad was not my everything. Because if he was, what would be left for me right now? And if I had put everything inside of him, he is dead. I am still alive. Then it's either going to have to be God or me. Those two will have to be my everything. And that is where my strength has to lie. This has been like another widow said, crawling through mud.
Mm.
This has been my husband died in November. November 2016, my son went to the military. March 2017, my husband that I had been with for 32 years died. And then May, my daughter left to go into the military. She left on Mother's Day. And I returned home to an empty house. And I cried and snotted in every area of that house. I
Mm.
one time had to go down to the basement to get a screwdriver. Mark was an electrician. I wouldn't mess with no screws, but I had to go get the screwdriver and cried all the way up the steps because he touched that last to go do some tedious chore. But it was about that screwdriver.
Right.
Stopping at 2 o'clock in the morning in the middle of the steps, crying, coming home, sitting in the garage crying before getting into the house, spending countless hours in grief therapy, journaling, writing. I have fought for my
Mm.
whole life. This is not a holdup. This is the long game. This is me trusting God when I don't understand why I just went through breast cancer, just had an emergency hysterectomy, and he did? Like, I started thinking of a whole bunch of people who had bad marriages, and I do not understand why they is still alive, and my good husband is not. Because I was
Right.
like, such and such can't stand him. They ain't even together. He cheating. And I'm like, but the good
That's
man.
right. You do that. You do that.
So let me be clear. This is the result of trusting God. I remember looking out. My brother had come to stay, and then my first cousin came, and everybody was gone. And this was my first moment in the house, Catherine and I together. And I was like, okay, it's time to put on our big girl panties because we gonna have to. Everybody got to go back to their life. We get to go back to whatever this is called that we got. And I had a cup of tea, and I was looking out of the window into the backyard. And my husband was a hunter, and there was a styrofoam deer that he would use for target practice. And I looked out there and I was like, he is never going to shoot another arrow into that deer. He is dead. And I heard God whisper, the plans that I have for you are good. And I was like, oh, really?
Right.
Because I was like, so let me play it back for you guys from how I seen it right
Explain
here.
good.
And I played it back like my version. And I felt like a Job moment where God said, I knew Mark was going to die. And because I knew he was going to die, that's why this was in place. That's why this was in place. And that's why this was in place. And it was about 20 things that God downloaded and I wrote in my journal. And after he did all that, I said, okay. Fair. That's fair. I said, I'm still not a fan of this.
Right.
But I appreciate you being willing to give me that information. And I'm going to trust you in this.
Yeah.
But this some bullshiggity right here.
Yep.
So make no mistake. I am never out here trying to put out a front.
Absolutely not. For who?
And in March, when it is the anniversary of his death, you see my calendar like, don't come to me with nothing if you ain't really got to. And like when his birthday comes, it's like from March to like June, I try to be like minimal because I know what my triggering season is.
Right.
So I know he died in March. I know we had the nerve to get married the day after my birthday in May. That seemed cute when we was kids. Now, worst mistake ever.
My birthday in May too.
I do not recommend 0 to 10. If you are getting married, do not get married the day after your birthday. Because the one thing we can say, well, if something happens, baby, I can guarantee you we gonna die. You don't want that death after your birthday. Don't do it. It's not cute. Don't do it next to a holiday. It's gonna screw everything up.
Yeah.
And so this has been the mental health. This was when my husband died. I made a list of every widow I knew, and I picked up the phone and said, can I talk to you? Can we have lunch? I needed to lean in how they were not crazy. I needed to lean into how they had not lost their mind. So I was very proactive. I was telling everybody, it's a miserable day. I'm not liking this. We not pretending. So they knew, ooh, that girl got a lot of backpacks. Yeah, y'all, here's one for you. Here's one for you. And here's one for you. Because So this has been, and I would say a good 2 to 3 years of leaning in hard like that created that change. I cannot imagine trying to stifle and hold that in. Yeah, ain't nobody got time for that. Yeah. So no.
I'm learning to just lean into the pain. When it come, it come. You know, I was on a plane and I broke down.
Oh yeah, because a brief will pack her little suitcase like, oh, you trying to dodge me? Oh, you trying to act like you can run away from me? You trying to act like, you can stay up late? Girl, look, I got my suitcase. I'm going too. I'm wherever you at. And when you finally slow down, it's going to do what it got to do.
Yep. And that's the worst thing, to avoid it. Just let
now you use the double energy trying to run and it still got to come. Let me just, you know what, girl, let me just make this appointment and meet you. We ain't got to go nowhere.
I get with y'all later, but I got a date with grief today. And I just let it come. I only pay it. If it come, I don't care where I'm at. If I'm in church, I sit right in my pew and just go ahead and cry. And y'all can think I'm praising Jesus, but system had a breakdown. Okay. Yeah, I just let it come when it comes. I've learned that though, because I used to try to hold it in and hold it in, and I'm like, yeah, it's coming. Just go ahead, girl. Do your thing. Just get it over with. Until the next time, until we meet again. Yeah, I'm grateful to have met you and,
Yeah.
to be able to, have somebody that because grief is grief, you
Well,
know.
maybe we should do a TikTok live together. I mean, I do a TikTok live every Monday evening,
Okay.
and different people come on. And also, we have a brief Discord where people are in there sharing comments. If they're having a rough day, because the thing about it, it's open 24 hours. So one thing we know when we grieving, somebody ain't asleep. So people write messages and they're sharing. They're looking for advice. What are you doing? And it's a safe space where we're all in there together, because the one thing, and you mentioned this early, community, and we are on this journey together.
Yeah.
I will let you wrap up this with the last statements to everyone that is here and close out our conversation.
Thank everybody that's listening or who will be listening. And I thank Tina for inviting me. And, one thing about life is life it's gonna be lifing, as long as we live. But you can get through it, find you a community, somebody that you trust, you know, and to be able to express yourself. And I thank God for my community. I thank God for God because he's held me together when I didn't want to be held. So, I'm grateful to God. And, my mom, she has been my rock. And, I appreciate, and my children, I know they lost their sister and my grandkids that lost their mom. I just want to say I love you guys. And thank you, Tina, again for having me.
You're so welcome. Thank you for being here.
Thank you.
Thank you for spending another episode with Widowhood Real Talk. If you found the contents of today helpful, share the episode to anyone you know who may need it. Subscribe to the show and tune into Widowhood Real Talk each week. Then visit widowhood-realtalkwithtina.org to join the community and access additional resources. Remember, you are not alone in this journey.